So my goal here, ideally, is that I can talk about this subject that I'm about to go into in such a way that it won't get taken down and it won't get flagged, but it actually can spark an honest conversation with ourselves and our culture. But I don't even know if that's even possible. All right? And what I want to talk about is the subject of racial, ethnic division, specifically in the United States, because that's what I'm most familiar contextually. But I think historically add some perspective to it as well. All right? So it is not my intention to say anything that would be discriminating or anything like that. But there are some observations that will be, I think, a little bit uncomfortable to wrestle with and grapple with. So here we go. The first is in the subject of racism. I think something that we need to admit in ourselves as human beings, and this is a human heart issue. I would not say that it's my complexion issue. I think it's somewhere deeply set into the human condition that the idea of homogeny has been the basic setting of all of human history. If you go through every empire, every nation, every tribe, all of these things, their primary setting was to be homogenous. Everyone spoke the same language, everyone had the same skin tone basically, or at least in the very classes that existed, they were all very, very, very homogenous. And that as empires would expand and they would engage in commerce and stuff, they would interact with one another. But there was definitely a hard barrier between that's them and this is us, and they need to stay them and we need to stay us. We might marry off some of our daughters to them or them to us in order to maintain a sort of treaty between us, a peace, but it's still, that's them and this is us. So, given that's the human basic standard, and it's also important to note that homogeny is a lot easier to be safe in or feel safe, I'll say it like that maybe, to feel safe within, and it's a lot easier to serve because I don't have to learn a new language. I don't have to be conscious of my gestures and terminology and the things that I say because you're the same as I am. We understand a lot of things intuitively that I don't have to explain to you if you're different, and that you don't have to explain to me if you're different or I'm different from you. It's a lot easier, simpler, less complicated. And that's why you go to towns, you go to different organizations and companies, you see a lot of homogeny. You go into your break room at work, you're going to see a lot of the same colors, a lot of the same backgrounds, a lot of the same ethnicities, and a lot of the same languages sitting together at the same table, just organically. That's the natural inclination. And I think that it's important for us as human beings to admit that reality, that that's the basis from which all of us are coming from intuitively. And that to reach outside of that and to begin to diversify is counterintuitive. It's uncomfortable. It's complicated. I'm almost certainly going to have to learn some language terms. I'm going to have to unlearn some language terms, gestures, actions that the other people may not. And the same thing is true even when you get married. Male and female don't have a lot of intuitive shared bases. So as you get married or you're in a long-term relationship, you have to learn and you have to unlearn. This is so intuitively connected, or intrinsically is the word I wanted right there, to what it means to just be a human and interact with other humans that are not exactly like yourself. Okay? Can we just admit that? Moving on. Because of this reality that it costs less, it's less complicated, it is simple, it is more natural to niche. And you see this in all the algorithms. If you interact with a lot of sports content on YouTube, you see a lot of sports content on YouTube. If you interact with a lot of, let's say, music content on YouTube, you see a lot of music content on YouTube. And that's the same thing across TikTok, Snapchat, all these. where they niche you into a specific category of similar content styles. It's that exact same element expressed in a different context. This is one of the things that also tends to foster the creation of echo chambers of thought, idea, creativity, things like that. So this is natural, this is normal, this is even, you could say, more economically preferable. That I want to, in some instances, figure out what the precise niche that my product or service is going to serve the most significant amount of return on, and then I can safely, financially disregard other groups that are just not there for it. That's the basis of country music, rock music, different types of rock music, and R&B, soul, rap, fill in the blank. And this is connected to how we view race and diversity. Because simply, in order to embrace diversity, you have to give away different parts of those things that are so financially and socially intuitive to yourself. So by doing so, you have to embrace something that's a greater moral or ethical standard to reach outside of those things. And you're not going to find that greater ethical or moral standard within yourself, because all the things about yourself is self-preservation and tribal preservation. Enter the gospel. See, from the very beginning of the church age, you see this outreaching into cross cultures. From the very first chapter of Acts, Jesus says that you're going to start with Jerusalem, and then Judea, and then you're going to cross culture into Samaria, the people that you cannot stand to be around, the ones that you feel are traitorous to your very kind. You're going to have to reach into them, and you're going to give them the gospel as well. The same thing is true with reaching the Gentiles, that Jesus said that there are other sheep not of my sheepfold, and I have to go bring them as well. And at the very end of the book of Revelation, you see a number that cannot be named of every tribe, tongue, nation, and people, all worshiping God together. And you'll notice that they're using their tongues. There says every tribe and tongue. They're all speaking different languages, yet worshiping the same God. This is something the gospel alone is able to accomplish. Not economics, not politics, not whatever non-denominational or non-government organization or whatever it is you think is going to instead. It's just the gospel. And because we've lost sight of the gospel over the past few generations, we've also lost sight of the primary guidance, the North Star that will guide us into that kind of beautiful, unique diversity that only the gospel can accomplish.